listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue our drive home. I want to thank our guest on the line for being patient with us. We're running a little bit late because Dr. Aimy Steele joins us, the co-founder and CEO of New North Carolina Project, which was launched to ignite community-focused change and motivated North Carolina's people of color to claim their civic power. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Steele. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, thank you. I'm great. I hope you are.
Great is I'm jealous because I'm okay. I'm fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine, right?
Yes.
So
we're alive.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, my friend?
Okay, so I grew up in Houston, Texas, and Sagamihara, Japan.
Oh my goodness! All right, what took you? So Houston is a fan. I love Houston. I've had the opportunity to work there many times. How old were you when you left Houston?
So I left Houston at age 8, stayed in Japan for 3.5 years. We were a military family.
Oh, boy.
Then I moved back to Texas for 1 year and then on to North Carolina, where I've been since the age of 13.
And how did that shape you, both being in the military and living in the United States and spending time in Japan? Would you say that it really put your worldview into focus?
Yeah, it definitely did. One of the things as I reflect back on my time in Japan and just moving around, to so many different places and having to get to know people in very short amounts of time, as I reflect on all of those experiences, I realized that I am a very diverse person in my own headspace, right? And I also understand the importance of the Japanese American education on my journey, because it really propelled me to become a lifelong learner and to position myself in spaces where education was a priority. So I took my education very seriously after having spent time in Japan, witnessing my teachers who were American and Japanese American teaching me differently than what I had experienced when I grew up in Houston. So that experience really changed and cultivated my entire life.
I was on social media, you scroll and things will pop up and you'll see a video about education and not just education in Japan, but also how the elderly are treated, how people with disabilities are treated. And it's hard because we have this incredible country, but we're massive. And there's so many people from different backgrounds, different perspectives, different traditions. What do you see as sort of this path forward now in the United States? I mean, we're on sort of very shaky ground when it comes to our vision of education in the United States, aren't we?
Oh, we absolutely are. And I'm a former Spanish teacher and school principal, so I have very strong feelings about education. But I think the pathway forward for us is to continue to embrace our diversity despite rhetoric around not looking at diversity and not expressing or honoring the diverse perspectives or ways we look or ways we are, not honoring that in the forefront of our lives. And I think that's a mistake. So for me, nothing is going to change, even with this administration, positing that DEI is not important and we don't need to honor our differences. That is a lie, straight out of hell. So we will continue to honor all of our differences and do, all the things that we were doing before. So my family is gladly celebrating Black History Month. We will celebrate Juneteenth. We will celebrate Native American Heritage Month and all the other months. So just because the federal government is not having a day, that's okay. It's not okay, but, I'm Black. I've been here before. But just because that's the case, we still will do all of our normal celebrations. Nothing has changed.
I think I'm not alone in saying I needed to hear this so much because, we find ourselves in these fights, whether it's in person or online or screaming at the television about diversity, equity, inclusion. How the idea that a horrible tragedy would be, oh my God, that a press conference would erupt like that. And all of a sudden, there were questions about whether it was DEI involved. And to that, so for folks who are hate listening, is the best way I can put it right now, Dr. Steele, is, to that, you mentioned it's honoring our diversity. I don't think people understand that it's only been less than 50 years since we've had the opportunity to say we belong in every place too, right?
That's right. That's right. And because we know we belong in every place, we can't let the rhetoric of one single administration change our core values and our core beliefs. We've already gotten past that fight. We got past it 50 plus years ago. We've gotten past, educating all students with, equitable books and facilities and things like that. We've gotten past that. And so just because someone says that, no, we're actually not going to honor all of the different ways that we blend and make the fabric of our United States of America, just because they say that doesn't mean we have to honor that or do that. And I will say this, I was just speaking at a speaking engagement prior to this call, and one of the things I spoke about was how DEI impacts those with disabilities or other abilities. And when we see a ramp that goes into a building, that's an example of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is the inclusion of folks who need wheels to go up instead of using their feet to go up a sidewalk or step into a building. So we really just don't, as a society, understand all the ways in which DEI permeates our world and our ways of living every single day. It's not just black women and white women and, black men and all of these things. It's really everyone, including veterans, including women, all women, white women especially. So we are all benefactors of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I live that part of it. I have a son who has physical and intellectual challenges. And when he was young, I was at a parent meeting at a school, and the debate was whether or not they should put it in an elevator. And this parent said, well, I don't know why we need an elevator. Nobody here at this school needs one. And I will tell you, Dr. Steele, I about ran across the room with a chair in my hand because that's why. That's because we didn't have access. We didn't have the opportunity for everyone to participate in this wonderful, fully funded school. And so what do you say to folks? They don't, I guess the problem is the way I see it is people don't want to have to think about it. Right, that's the challenge. They feel like it's sort of they feel like it's taking away something from them, or it's just honestly it just seems like it annoys them. Is that am I wrong on that?
Yeah, that's the sentiment. Things that require people to work differently than how they're accustomed, or think differently than how they're accustomed, does, I believe, genuinely baffle them, annoys them, discomforts them. It makes them uncomfortable, and they just don't know how to fight through that. And I think my experience as a principal and a teacher has taught me this. There are so many differences I encounter on a daily basis. I don't really have time not to accept a difference. It's really more like for a teacher, like a teacher every day, their whole life is built around accepting differences. So we are built like this. We walk into a classroom and there are 25 different kids, right?
Yes.
And we have to honor all 25 with all of their different sets of needs, wants, desires, ways to be loved, ways to be appreciated, ways to be hugged or touched or not touched or whatever, because we need all 25 to perform at their highest level. So a teacher's job is to figure it out and make it work. A teacher, the most unsuccessful teachers are the ones who don't honor the differences in their students. And the most frustrated teachers are the teachers who don't honor the differences in their students. So that translates into our society. So, yeah, I believe people are genuinely frustrated when they have to make changes that don't necessarily benefit them but benefit others. Now, everyone is not like that. There are some really good people out there who do want to make the world a better place for everyone. But to those who don't, move out of our way.
Yes! Get out of the way. Okay, just saying. And for the folks on the sidelines, I guess, is what has been very challenging to really address over the last few months and realize that, not for the fact that 10 to 15 million people just opted out. That's hard too. And then we get into these arguments. This is happening on my Facebook page for this show, talking about democracy. And I know that you affirm, your organization affirms a dedication to democracy. There's this argument. I mean, I never in my life until the last couple of years ever heard anyone say, well, we don't actually live in a democracy. Holy cats. What is happening there, Dr. Steele?
Well, people are just genuinely uneducated about civics. So Civics 101 is a required course for all North Carolina students. Hopefully it is around the nation, right? But people are just confused about words and terms and terminology, and they don't realize what they're saying. So that's really the only reasonable explanation I have for someone saying we don't live in a democracy. The reason why they probably think that also is because they hadn't had to live in any other place. So if we ship them off to a country where communism is the practice, and the course of how they do business, then they would probably be more appreciative of what we have in the United States, even with its flaws.
Yes. Agreed, 1,000%. So tell us how the New North Carolina project came into being. What was the genesis of this?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned I was a principal, so I ran for office for the North Carolina House of Representatives because I got so frustrated with the North Carolina General Assembly telling us as principals how we needed to legislate class size or have class sizes be kind of the thing that we focus on, which means that we would have to reduce class sizes in kindergarten through third grade, but then see the class sizes swell in fourth and fifth grade. And then, of course, that had a negative impact in middle school and also in high school. So that was frustrating to me. It was frustrating that I had to move 3 teachers before school started after they'd already set their classrooms for open house. And we had to form like a human chain to move these teachers' rooms around to make room for more teachers to honor the class size legislation. So I got frustrated with that in August of 2017, and then it happened again in November of 2017. And I asked my assistant superintendent, who did this? Like, who made these stupid rules? And she said, that would be the North Carolina General Assembly. I said, well, someone needs to fix it. And she said, sounds like that's you. And I decided the next month to run for the North Carolina House of Representatives. I had no idea how to run a race or what I was getting myself into. I also didn't know that I was running in a Republican, gerrymandered Republican district where I was favored to lose by 10,000 votes or 11 points. I had no clue. So I started running for office and realized quickly that I could not run for office full-time and be a full-time principal. Yeah. So I resigned at the end of the school year to make room for running for office because I believed in me. I believed in what I stood for, and I believed that I could fix public education in North Carolina. So I ran. I lost by 1,978 votes, even though I was expected to lose by 10,000.
Sure.
So that taught me that if you stand up a field operation, get a bunch of volunteers, raise a little bit of money, then hopefully you can try to turn out people to vote, and they would vote. So that's what I did in 2018. I did it again in 2020. Now with COVID, that was a whole different ballgame. We had expected to run a more aggressive field operation and knock and call at least 100,000 people or 100,000 times. We did 18,000 in 2018, so we expected to do about 100 in 2020. Well, we were grounded. After COVID, started. We were grounded. All I could do was raise money. So in 2018, I raised about 80,000, met with about 70,000 in kind from the party, and that led me to right at between 140 to 150. In 2020, I raised about $1.3 million.
Oh, my God.
So just to give you the contrast between the 2 years. So at that point, my race was considered a race that could be flipped because we had done the work in 2018. But it still was not enough.
It was COVID,
because
too.
We did not, and COVID, exactly. Yeah. So I got 9,000 more votes, but I still lost by 28 or 2,900. Oh. So after the race, I was just debriefing. And, debriefing with all the groups that had endorsed me and, organizations, et cetera. And I was also following the Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff races in Georgia. Plus, I was following Stacey Abrams and her gubernatorial bid. So I was so excited for all the things that I was hearing about Stacey, about New Georgia Project, about Fair Fight, about all the things, that I just kept doing research. And people started saying, oh, you're going to start an organization like Stacey Abrams, aren't you? And I said, no. First of all, I'm just out here trying to debrief the election, and I don't want anything else to do with politics. And then January 6th happened. And after that, I had a conversation with someone 3 days later, and we talked about what is wrong with the politics of North Carolina and what are some ways we can fix it. And that led to me founding New North Carolina Project and New North Carolina Project Action First. So May of 2021, I filed paperwork. I'm the sole founder of both organizations. And I then started working with some of my staff. One of my closest friends and first hires is my current COO. Her name is Bree. And together we have led this organization since 2021.
I want to come down and work with you. I love this story.
Come on down.
Amazing. Absolutely. We're going to find ways to come down and work with you in North Carolina. I know we have a friend, Todd Belcourt, who works with Social Change. I'm going to find out what kind of work he's doing in North Carolina, and hopefully connect with you as well to uplift the work that you're doing. And I know that you have the 4 pillars. Tell us a little bit about the 4 pillars of the New North Carolina Project.
Yes. So one thing you said earlier about people and their desire to vote, when we were out in 2022 campaigning, running, our ground game and hiring all of our organizers and everything, we knocked about 48,000 doors to touch about 66,000 people. And the biggest thing we learned was that people don't care about voting as much as we did. And so when we learned that, we actually took all of that qualitative data, and our team at the time analyzed it and put it into 8 categories. We narrowed down the 8 categories to 4 categories, and those 4 categories became the 4 pillars. So we started, instead of just focusing on political engagement, we started focusing on what would programming look like around these 4 key pillars that people told us were important to them. How can we address their needs and then convert them to become a regular lifelong voter, as opposed to going to them and only talking about voting? So that is really what started the pillar work. It was not our original design. Our original design was just around politics and getting Black and brown people to vote, because we saw that more than 1 million people did not show up for the election in 2020. So our sole purpose in being founded was to help turn out Black and brown voters. But then when we got out there and started working, people told us they weren't that interested in voting. They were actually interested in child care costs, economic things, energy bills. That was the biggest. Like their power and gas bills were higher than their rent and their mortgage. We heard that so many times. So then we used all of that information and came up with the 4 pillars, which are economic mobility, public safety, civic engagement, and housing security. Under the housing security, we started working with the National Renewable Energies Lab and the Department of Energy. And now we are able to replace people's HVAC system, upgrade their refrigerator if needed, their hot water heater, and then also make weatherization upgrades to make their homes tighter and more energy efficient. That saves people money on their heating bill, their gas bills, power bills, and it also helps them to see how they can stay in their homes and increase their housing security because they're decreasing their bills. So all of that is the work that we now do, and then it's inclusive of voting for sure. But we run a signature program under each of our 4 pillars.
Incredible. I'm kind of girl crushing on you and this organization. This is extraordinary.
Thank you.
Well, here, let me tell you why, because we had a listener in our last hour from Detroit who, we talk about all the things that are happening, and they are flooding the zone with all these moves and executive orders, and we won't get into it. But, they're like, look, you're telling us all the bad things. What can we do? And here, folks, hear us. This is what you can do, is support New North Carolina Project. How do folks get involved? How can they support the work that you're doing, whether it's getting down to North Carolina, sending contributions, learning more about you? Tell us what we can do.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing to do is to go to our website. So we have 2. It's NNCP, so New North Carolina Project, or you can spell it all the way out. But nncp.org, and then NNCPAF, actionfirst.org. So go to our website, look at the pillars, sign up to volunteer, make a donation, become a monthly sustainer. That will help tremendously, because much of our funding, especially for our energy program, was coming from the Department of Energy. Well, you know what's happening with government funding right now, especially grants and all sorts of government programs. They're frozen, right? even though they're not really frozen, they're now still frozen because people are scared to really take action. So you can make a donation to help support our energy efficiency program or any of our other programs. So that's the kind of first set of things. The second set of things would be to go to our social media. So you can find us at New NC Projects on all social media platforms. That's New NC Projects on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, and LinkedIn. And on those channels, follow us, like us, subscribe, and just, stay engaged with what we're doing. So those are the ways you can support. And we're also having a series of town halls monthly. So you can come to our first town hall next week and any subsequent town hall. Are
these virtual or are they in person only?
All town halls are virtual. Yes.
Oh, excellent, folks. Tune in for those so we can learn more and find out how we can help. I am so honored to meet you and excited to build this relationship. I just messaged my friend Todd Belcourt so we can hopefully coordinate and offer support in any way we can. And please, let's make this a regular conversation so folks can be engaged, informed, and really help you in any way we can.
We would love that. I would love that. That would be great. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for having me on your show.
My pleasure. We'll do it again. That's Dr. Aimy Steele. Go to newnorthcarolinaproject.org, and you can find out all the social media, how to volunteer, how to donate, and we are going to talk to you again, Doctor. Have a great evening, and thank you again for all the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.